Minister, as you're aware, the Employment Wage Subsidy Scheme has been instrumental in saving thousands upon thousands of jobs across the country over the last couple of years. However, there has been some recent changes to it, so perhaps the Minister might use his time this morning just to outline what these changes are, because we're getting a lot of queries from small and micro businesses across the constituency. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy. So I propose to take questions 90 and 91 together. The objective of the Wage Subsidy Scheme is to support employment and maintain the link between the employer and the employee insofar as is possible. The Employment Wage Subsidy Scheme has been a key component of the Government's response to the COVID-19 crisis. It's an economy-wide scheme that operates across all sectors. In money terms, the overall support provided to date by EWIS is over €6.6 billion, comprising direct subsidies of almost €5.7 billion and PRSI forgone of €902 million to 51,700 employers in respect of over 696,900 employees. The eligibility criteria for EWIS is based on self-assessment principles, and the legislation provides that an employer must be able to demonstrate that his or her business will experience a 30% reduction in turnover or customer orders between the 1st of January and the 31st of December 2021 by reference to the corresponding period in 2019 as a result of the business disruption caused by the pandemic. I draw attention to the fact that despite the exit from most public health restrictions during the summer, eligibility criteria were not tightened in the Finance Act of 2021, which was enacted in the summer and which extends the scheme beyond the end of June 2021. Indeed, the reference period to which the metric must be applied was actually broadened out in that Act to span a full year, thus actually relaxing the conditionality to qualify to benefit from the scheme in most cases. Many businesses were fully closed or limited in their capacity to trade due to the public health restrictions in place for the earlier months of 21. This change in the assessment period meant that such businesses could generate the equivalent of up to 70% of their calendar year turnover from 2019 or customer orders for the remainder of 2021 and still remain eligible to claim support under the scheme. To address the specific question regarding businesses, for example hotels, that are operating at just over 70%, such businesses would not be eligible for EWIS as their turnover exceeds the threshold for support. The scheme is calibrated in such a way to ensure that support is available for those businesses that are most adversely impacted by the pandemic. The eligibility requirement of a 30% reduction in turnover has been a key feature of the scheme since its introduction, and I have no plans to alter that criterion. Deputies will be aware that against the background of the imposition of revised public health restrictions, the Government decided last Thursday that the enhanced rates of the EWIS subsidy will apply for a further 2 months, December of this year and January of next. This will give certainty to businesses when they need it most. In addition, the COVID restriction support scheme has been extended to the end of January. The provision is also been made to allow me, as Minister for Finance, to extend this scheme up to the 30th of April 2022 by ministerial order if deemed necessary. As deputies are aware, and I thank deputies for their support last night, amendments to the bill were brought forward this week to give effect to the EWIS and CRIS schemes mentioned. But to conclude, the Government will, as we have done since the onslaught of this pandemic, continue to monitor developments closely and make the right decision at the right point. Thank you.
Dr. Berry.
Thank you, Minister, for that very useful response, actually. Just a very specific question. I'm glad you brought up the hospitality industry, because as we all know here, there's quite a large fluctuation in their turnover because of the seasonality associated with their sector. Is it the case that if a hotel, for instance, is not enrolled in the EWIS scheme for this month of December, that they're also not eligible for entry to the scheme for next month of January? Is that the case? And if it is the case, that they're also ineligible regardless of turnover for January, is it something that the Minister might wish to consider amending? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Deputy, for that question. The answer to your first question is yes. In order for a company to be participating in this scheme from next year, they must be participating in the scheme for the month of December. And I am aware of concerns that have been raised by a number of hotels that have a very high seasonal dimension to their business. But, Deputy, in order for a hotel or any business to be excluded from the scheme at the moment, it means that their business performance is better than a 30% decline against the period in 2019. So that means that you have a business that is trading probably not in line with how they would have hoped, given the pandemic, but is still trading better than a 30% decline in their turnover. And the challenge with this, Deputy, is any threshold that I fix is going to have businesses that are just outside of it. And I am aware that is the case for some.
Dr. Berry.
Thank you for that clarification, Minister. Just the last part of my question really is, and I do accept your bona fides, that the EWES scheme is to support jobs and to support employees. But there was reports over the last 48 hours emerging where some of the money used to subsidise companies went on basically to provide dividends for shareholders, which is not the intended, I guess, goal of the scheme. And I know the Minister is not happy with that. I know you've been on record saying you're looking to tighten up the restrictions or tighten up the conditionality associated with it. So I guess the question is, when are we likely to see, I guess, higher levels of conditionality associated with the EWES scheme, and will it require any changes to primary legislation to bring that in? Thank you very much, Minister.
Margaret O'Hocta.
Thank you, Deputy. The overwhelming majority of companies that have participated in the EWES scheme went into it because they genuinely believed they were needed at that point. And they did so based on the effect of the pandemic on their business. And the near overwhelming experience that I and the Revenue have had is that of employers participating in this scheme in good faith. It is the case that for a number of companies who found out that their business performance was better than expected, they have returned the EWES payments that was available. And I want to repeat what I said yesterday, that for companies who do find themselves in that position, they should consider their choices with regard to a scheme that has played such a vital role in protecting our economy, and continue to act in good faith. In relation to the commitment that I've given, what I have just said at this point is that I will consider this matter, because I do want to be very careful that we don't make changes to the scheme that might preclude businesses from participating in it in the future, who may well be profitable, but are far less profitable than they were in the past, and still do need this scheme to have a viable and successful future.
Dr. O'Donoghue.